So I'm grateful that I was able to literally save over $1,000 per month to live in that area. Not sure if I'm even gonna keep this part of the video in. I had issues with vermin, like rats, mice. I've walked around that neighborhood before. People have like taken swings at me to almost punch me. It was rough. It was rough. But for the price, I was paying initially when I moved in $12. Hey y'all! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Elaisha Jade. I'm super excited to bring you through my apartment tour. Okay, I know it's weird. I'm not in my apartment right now. Yes. I have already moved out of my apartment, but I filmed some B-roll and I'm going to be talking over that. This video is going to be split up into 4 parts. They're going to be the area that I lived in, the building that I lived in, the apartment itself that I lived in, and why I was leaving. Now, when I describe the apartment itself, I'll get into square footage, how much I paid per month, so you get the full tea on what I paid for my rent. Yes. As well, I will be talking through the units, the areas themselves, and some of the issues that I'd had with the unit too. The area / the neighborhood. So I lived in Regent Park in downtown Toronto. That area does have a bit of a bad rap, and there's so much research you could do around the gentrification of the area, why in Regent Park many years ago there was high crime, and how things are really changing in that area, whether it's for the better or for the worse of those who are now disenfranchised and have been moved out of their housing, which includes community housing and cheaper, more affordable living for Toronto. So I bordered in Regent Park. I was just almost a little bit outside of it or close to the thick of it, but as well I was very close to Corktown, and then I was also close to Leslieville, and then the Distillery District was about a 15 to 20 minute walk away from where I was. So I spent the majority of my time actually further west for work specifically, but in my day-to-day, I spent most of my time in my neighborhood. I actually miss it so much. I really loved living so close to Leslieville and being able to just walk down south to Queen Street and be able to see all of the beautiful stores as well. Dundas East was great too. There were so many really cool work-live lofts in the area, great cafes and bakeries. Gerrard East was great too because my favorite Chinese markets were there where I would buy my fresh fruits and vegetables, and my favorite lookout spot is also there too. I believe that it's called Riverdale Park. I would love walking in the areas. I would take very, very long walks on different trails because where I lived actually bordered on like that Don Valley Trail area. As well, I lived really close to a lot of bike lanes. I'd be able to bike down south and hop on the Don Valley Trail quite easily. I really loved a lot of the restaurants as well too in the area. Oh my goodness, the amount of times I've ordered Thai food from Suko Thai should be illegal. I loved it there. I also loved being able to stroll down to the Distillery District and head into Clooney and get myself some fresh bread, or be able to go to Soma Chocolate and get myself some yummy vegan like ice cream there. Oh, the coconut flavor. Woo! Really liked the area for those reasons. However, let's get into the building. So I've lived in this apartment complex for 4 years. I will not be mentioning the property manager's name. I just don't know if there would be any issues with me mentioning who they are, so I won't give the exact location. So I lived in a complex that had like 3 towers in it. So the building itself was purchased by a European property management company. They're quite popular. So they were starting to push a lot of the longtime residents and tenants out by raising the rent, and then by pushing them out, they would then be able to flip these apartments and be able to, I guess, provide updated living. Even on my floor, and I'll get into my unit itself, but my unit was completely new. I was the first person to live in it after its renovation, which we'll talk about in a moment. But as I would pass certain neighbors' apartments, even on my floor, people did not have the same upgrades that I did in my apartment. So I was obviously paying quite a premium more than they were to live in the unit. As well within the building, this is a bit of a secret. So I actually had taken a tour of the unit itself, and I was told on the property website that there was in-unit laundry, which is very important to me. There wasn't in my unit. However, people did have in-unit laundry, I found out. One of my old coworkers had lived in the same building as me. I found out that he had laundry in his unit, and I was like, this is a scam. Because when I did the tour of the unit itself, I was very excited because it was completely renovated, completely new, but there was no in-unit laundry. But it said there was in-unit laundry. And the person giving me the tour, she's like, there's no in-unit laundry in this building. Liar. Oh, you liar. She told me that, lovely lie. So yeah, so with the building itself, there were a lot of areas that were under renovation already, but it was just weird. It was just such a weird mix because sometimes they would clean out the big garbage bins outside. So every once in a while they would clean those bins, and they usually clean them in the summertime. The smell downstairs on the first floor. The smell. There seemed to be like water damage on the first floor, in the hallway, on the ceiling. So the building itself looked not extremely worn and torn, but it didn't look urban, didn't look fresh, didn't look nice. So there was no real like curbside appeal from the smell alone, let alone from the fact that, as I mentioned before, it also bordered 2 other buildings within the complex. There was a building that was southeast of my building. There's just a lot going on there. The cops were always there, ambulance were always there, fire trucks were always there, and I would have to walk down south past that building to get to my bus stop or to just head down onto the main streets. And there were a lot of different interesting characters who were there, a lot of people who definitely needed quite the amount of help, and so it really was difficult for me to be able to walk through that every day to understand and know that often our social services have failed a lot of people. Of course, I loved living in the area, but as well too, having to walk through like Dundas and Sherbourne area was sometimes a bit difficult. It's not that I would feel extremely unsafe as if somebody was gonna mug me. It wasn't like that. It was just more that I've walked around that neighborhood before. People have like taken swings at me to almost punch me. That's what I mean. So this isn't me even being discriminatory against any particular group of people, especially those who are just underserved, entirely so, by our social services. It's more for me to just give the reality of the situation and paint a picture to say my rent was that cheap because of where I lived. The walls weren't extremely thin, but I could hear certain things, and so I could just hear this one man like multiple times per day just let out a big scream. Like it was almost like he was just sighing in a scream. So my unit as well too was quite close to the ground, so I could hear when people were fighting. I'd even one time, this was very difficult, I'd even one time heard somebody like hurt themselves quite badly right outside of my window. So yeah, it was quite the experience. Back into the building itself, the laundry room area was okay. I didn't have the best time doing my laundry there, especially once COVID had hit. I would always clean out my machine, but then when I would clean out between the grooves, it's like a usual laundromat, except it was just public to those who did not have the privilege of having in-unit laundry. As well, there was bicycle storage that I used. It was like 10 bucks per month that I utilized, and it kept my bike safe. I didn't have to bring it all the way upstairs every time. My unit. So my unit itself, I believe, was 475 square feet or 450 square feet. Not very big. It's a 1-bedroom apartment as well too, and completely renovated as well. So I had a new sink, new counters, new dishwasher, new bathtub, and it's interesting because you would think, okay, great, like she has all of these upgrades that would make it an incredible unit. And trust me, I was very, very grateful for the unit that I had. However, something in my gut actually when I moved in had told me to move into a unit that was 2 floors up, and I was like, no universe, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do. And I did. So I'm not sure if I'm even gonna keep this part of the video in, but I'd had issues with vermin like rats, mice, because they did not seal the windows correctly, and I lived pretty close to the ground unit. So it was a bit of a nightmare. I brought that to the landlord tenant board. After that was resolved, I'd say that it was okay. So within the space though, it was as if they just didn't gut everything entirely. And I also think that it used to be a bachelor and they just like put a wall up to be like, it's a 1-bedroom now. And the bathroom area was great, but things didn't dry properly. Like my towels didn't dry properly, hence why I'm never buying cotton towels again. I'm only buying linen towels because I just hated that. And as well, what I loved though is that my unit was south facing, so I get a pretty good amount of sunlight in the summers and winters. I loved that I had a tree just outside of my window. It was very beautiful. It had quite a big balcony too. The living room itself was okay. Like I hung a TV in there. I was able to have a pretty long sofa in there. There was barely any storage in the kitchen, hence why I had to have a pantry in there. The fridge was a bit of a problem because it would leak sometimes, even though it was a completely new fridge. It was somewhat spacious for a single person living alone. It was fine. The drawers themselves were like slow close. Love that. Same with the cupboards. In terms of bathroom storage, I had 2 drawers. That's it. The drawers themselves were pretty big and they were segmented on their own, so I just threw in some baskets in there, but it also was just like pretty lackluster for the storage. I really did love the mirror in the bathroom though. It was so big. New toilet was in there, but the toilet seat itself, the secures and the fasteners were not, it was like this weird plastic, so it broke, so the toilet seat kept sliding. They had to replace it. There were just a lot of things that were just broken and needed to be fixed all at once. So it felt like I just moved into a Kinder Surprise toy that wasn't built properly. It was rough. It was rough. But for the price, I was paying initially when I moved in $1,250 when I first moved in, not including hydro. And I didn't have to pay for water. I think my hydro was about $30 to $40 per month. So it was quite reasonable, sometimes down to 20, y'all. Like, so that pricing, honestly, for that pricing, even though it did quite the number on my mental health, I'd say that it wasn't necessarily worth it against my mental health, but it was great for me to live in a rent-only building so I wouldn't have to deal with like a property manager who's a condo owner, and that's a big thing in Toronto. If I had a leak or a problem or whatever, I could call them right away. Whether they dealt with it appropriately and straight away with the vermin, not so much. Everything else, they did okay. Why I'm leaving. So I got a new job in Vancouver. I speak about that in my Q&A video, all about my experience and like why I'm leaving Toronto itself. Would I ever live there again? No, absolutely not. I could afford to not live in that type of space anymore. I loved it to be able to save money and be able to be close to so many things, because I know people who are paying like $1,800, $2,200, $2,500 to live in that area. So I'm grateful that I was able to literally save over $1,000 per month to live in that area. But like I said before, in terms of not just my mental health, but also my vibration and where I am and my energy, what I'm exuding, I didn't belong there anymore. I didn't belong in a makeshift apartment. I didn't belong in a place where I didn't feel would be a permanent home for me. I now belong in a space where I will live there for an extended period. I belong in a space that I can call my home. I could never really call that apartment my home just based on my experience. So thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. As I mentioned before, I have a goal. We're gonna hit 2,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And as well too, drop me a comment down below if you've had experience living in Toronto, or if you wanna live in Toronto and what you're thinking. You can ask me any questions you have. I'd love to answer them. Thank you so much again for joining, and I will talk to you next time.